I understand you're hurt. What's the youngest you remember feeling this way, and who was it at? Because there's something in the clinic we call transference, and the transference is when the patient either blames the doctor or falls in love with the doctor. That's not limited to the clinic. It's also in relationships. So in relationships, sometimes one mate will accuse the other of different things they haven't healed from. They'll either become the hero or they'll become the villain. So what you do is, to get out of the transference, is go, I understand that hurts. What's the youngest you remember feeling this way? And who was it at? And what that does is it allows each person to go all the way back to the original trauma and have support. Because a lot of times when they have the trauma and the memory, they're not feeling supported. So they stuff, they hide it, and they act it out over and over because they're blind to that. If they don't see it, they can't heal. And we always say you only can heal what you feel. And to feel, you have to be accurate in where this began. If you have the support system of your mate, then from there, at that point, it gives them hopefully the courage to then grow out of that, and instead of accusing their partner. And we always say this is important because if not, you'll pass this on to your kids. All the parents are a combination of different memories and experiences passed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's why we say that it's called the death of the ego fear. They're part of them that has to die to evolve. If they're not willing to die, they can't. And so I always tell them, study your parents because that's who you become. And I hate my mom or I hate my dad. I go, that anger is generated energy, which causes you to act like them. It's don't shoot the messenger. That's just the way it is. The more dynamically opposed we are to these certain patterns, the more etched they are. So the whole idea about forgiveness is for us and not for the other person, is for us to break the energetic cords that connect us to the memories and connect us to acting out these patterns. So the forgiveness represents like a death and a rebirth to the original you that was here before you accepted their patterns.
So you mentioned something that I think you are the only persons that I hear about. You need to feel to heal. Yeah. So a lot of other systems that I come across, what they do is they compartmentalize it. Yeah. So they put it in categories, and it's more like, oh, this happened, and it's more like a knowledge. What is so essential or relieve in your physiology, the experience?
All energy has a charge. And so sometimes the charge is so strong, you need to release it before you can actually heal. This is why in our tradition we have things like beating the bag and screaming and doing the ha sound and then the no sound, and because the charge holds on to the memory and the pattern. So for them to evolve and to move on, you can't go, well, I've forgiven everyone. You go into a state, what we call being pathologically peaceful. Those types of people are really scary because they're so disconnected from their true feelings that all of a sudden they can just lose it and snap. So you go, no, you've been wounded, you've been hurt. It's okay, we all have. You're not the only one that's been wounded and hurt. Use as an exercise to release and get rid of that charge. And once they can start releasing the charge, you keep them in a safe environment to where they can, okay, now it's time to heal. Because I can promise you that after a while of screaming and shouting, your voice gets tired, your body gets sore, and you want to move on. But first you need for it to release it from your body. People stuff, and when they stuff, they rob their immune system to suppress these different types of energetic conditions. That's why, like in the cancer clinics in China, once the patient is able to feel, then we can target their specific disease condition. But until then, it's a waste of time to give them different exercises or different things because they're so armored, internally guarded, they can't feel. And so no matter what you give them, it's ineffective. So we have to break the patients by breaking them, meaning that we have to break their armor, get them to feel. The minute that happens, you have two things, anger and grief. And so the anger comes up and then the grief and then the sobbing, which is actually really healthy. We say that when the heart closes down and the soul closes down, it goes into 3 stages. First, you have the anger, which sets up the boundary, and then the grief, which honors who you are. If you're setting up your anger and you're grieving and you're made fun of and that doesn't work, you go into the next stage. The anger turns into depression because your boundary system is not working. And then the grief turns into despair because you're beginning to lose hope. And that second stage, if nothing happens and they're still being oppressed or treated wrongly or cruelly, then they go to the third stage of survival, which is indifference and minimization. They don't care. Nothing bothers them. So when you take the patient or the student out of that denial system, they go back. First, they get depressed and they go into despair, and then they turn to anger and rage. Usually it's at the doctor who's teaching it because it's healthy and it's more safe to attack someone you're familiar with. And that's why I understand you're hurting. What's the youngest you remember feeling this way? That works with not just patients, but with your mate. When your mate comes out of denial, then we always say that they have to feel safe to come out of denial. If they don't feel safe, you can't force them. So sometimes when we're impatient because we've made it and your mate hasn't, it's realizing they don't feel safe. So it's like, what would make you feel safe to talk about this? Think of it like an empty box that you're dragging. It's pulling you down and it's robbing you of life force energy. You have free will, so you can drag it for the rest of your life. I always use the example of Ebenezer Scrooge, and he had his partner Marley, who was shackled with boxes. Those boxes are all the histories and stories that he haven't healed from. He's carrying with it. The idea about healing from that is that freeing yourself from that.
So as a part that you have to trust and believe, because they might never get there.
Right. They have to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, sometimes it's loving them enough to work with a professional, because a professional is a neutral ground. Sometimes they've been hurt by the things we've done or said that they don't trust us.
And sometimes they got attracted to people that is similar behavior that the one they hurt in the first place.
Exactly. And then you think of it this way. If they're attracted to the same type of pattern as the person that hurt them, and they're trying to get that person to like them so that they like themselves, the minute that person shifts and changes, they feel betrayed. They feel abandoned. They feel I no longer supported because it's a subconscious challenge. So when you work together to evolve, it's first understanding that we're imprisoned by these old patterns that we have to release and let go. Once you understand that, then go, well, what do you want? If you're at an impasse, you refer them out to someone you trust, like a therapist, that can help them go through these hurdles. If not, then that's when the relationship falls apart because, again, they don't feel safe and they feel betrayed. One of my teachers explained this to me, and he goes, I can put you in a room with 100 different people, hook you up with this person. But if you've had an extremely violent childhood and I put you with this person that's very loving, within a month, you'll create a very hostile environment because your interpretation of that hostile environment is intimacy. And I go, you're kidding? He goes, no, that's your interpretation. It's a subconscious manifestation that works with the conscious mind. That's why you get the people that will start sabotaging everything, even though they have a perfect environment, because they're not used to it. It has everything to do with their self-esteem. That's why in any type of energetic spiritual work, it's about breaking and rebuilding. In any mystical tradition, the first year is purgation, rebuilding, and cleaning out, because before you awaken their different clairvoyant, clairaudient perceptions, you want to make sure that they can handle what they're feeling and not using these different filters to interpret what they think it means as opposed to what it truly is. So at that point, it's about allowing them to heal from that.